You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everyone, you're back with Dave and Meckie's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the number one listener-supported talk radio on the net, so push the donate button and subscribe to the archives to get those for free. You can do that. It isn't terrible. Do it. Do it right now. Push the donate button. Get yourself some free merchandise. No, get yourself some great merchandise in your free time. From the station's website, a t-shirt, mug, or anything you like. Thanks for listening to Revolution Radio, and you're listening to show number 700. We celebrate every show that has 2 zeros at the end and represent. We represent the hypothesis. And if you're a fan of the show, you'll see how it's changed. How new information that's come to light has built upon the wealth of knowledge that we have, enabling us to make reasonable and rational decisions and determinations based on this new evidence. Meckie.
That's correct. And we can jump straight into it. So, how did the hypothesis come about in the first place? That's a good question, right? I mean, why? I mean, in fact, I've used this show, before we had played Escape, the Shiny Side Out, as a vehicle to formulate and express the very fundamental belief system that I had, come up with, and which has, changed over not significantly, but it has grown over the years. And since we had this show in collaboration with Dave, 14 years of research, talking to a lot of researchers. Lucky that we did, I have to say. We had access to a lot of great people that did a lot of great work over the years. So I was always questioning what it all means. Where do we come from? Why are we here? What's going on? I was fascinated early on by Charles Berlitz and Eric von Däniken's work. Read it when I was maybe 8-9 years old. My mother was a member of a German club, and she let me buy a every month. And it was a big deal, hardbound, and they would come and I would just devour them. Mysteries of Forgotten Worlds, the Bermuda Triangle, Chariots of the Gods, etc., etc. That was, talking 60s and 70s. So then it started to hit me that I learned a lot of stuff in school, which, I guess made sense in school. But when you realize there's so much more to learn, more to understand, and there's so many more mysteries which are just unanswered by what you learn in school, right? I'm not even talking about the non-physical mysteries, like ghosts or ESP or whatever, but archaeological mysteries, or mysteries, forgotten cultures, mysteries of peoples, right? The movement of peoples, even human beings themselves, how long we've been around. And what we're all about, and in fact, how long have we had a civilization like? Mm. And I've always been fascinated by Atlantis and stories about ancient civilizations. So that's sort of the genesis for me for the hypothesis. Dave, what about yourself?
I agree with everything you said. Yes, that's absolutely true, and we've shared what we've done by having this show and prior knowledge before we started the show, and of course how we met and how we, I suppose, instantly kind of got along because we have research that has like a Venn diagram. We have different areas of research. Von Däniken was, Chariots of the Gods was my mother. It was one of her favorite books. We were fascinated by ancient Egypt. The moon is another one that we shared our fascination for. Not because it's there and it's like you could call it a planetoid. It's certainly circular. It's kind of an odd shape and is bound to the Earth by 2 gravitational points, meaning that it's now its rotation period is the same as its orbital period, and so it doesn't actually rotate independently of the Earth's rotation. We always see the same side. But it kind of matches the stories that we knew about from the past of the Watchers, the say the Anunnaki. Did they leave someone behind? Is this an outpost? From that perspective, you'd be able to see the Earth 24/7 from one side only. You would never show your hand, for instance. There's always the other side of the moon. They call it the dark side of the moon. It just has as much light as all the other places, but it could be a place which, imagine the technology you would have to enable you to get to the far side of the moon, and maybe make the grade, maybe make that cosmological grade, or the what's it called, the Star Trek term for their unified management of the universe, Meki. What's it called? Not
the Prime Directive?
No, not the directive. The Federation of Planets. Let's call it that. So.
Oh, okay.
So to be able to make that in Star Trek terms, they had to have warp drive, or they had to have plasma drive or something, right? Whatever it was. And that's what one of their episodes focuses on. If you were a spacefaring, say, time or space bending culture in the universe, and you were the first there, every other one you would keep your distance off from, and until they got it, and you go, hey, it's welcome to, like, a car club. Yeah, I'm a car person, so all the people with cars kind of hang out. We do. So people with motorcycles, same thing. It's a unique kind of vehicle. You kind of hang out. You got the tech. There you go. Tech people hang out. Sci-fi people hang out together. Go to conferences. People who like to cosplay go to conferences. Each one of these kind of things we gravitate towards. So if the universe was already as a collective, say the Federation of Planets, they're going to keep their distance as much as possible. Maybe we've done some things that were kind of beyond our years and drew some attention. So my research around UFOs is because, family history of unusual sightings and things and goings on in their lives, stories that usually deathbed confessions, those kinds of things, and it is endless. And Meki and I we've discussed this and we agree upon something. There is no paranormal. It is just normal.
Yeah.
The term paranormal doesn't mean that it's extra normal. It is just that not everyone sees it. So you could call subnormal those that don't see it, in the way that extra normal suggests that only a few people see it. What about the majority of people? And we laugh about how our society wants to name things, and once they've named it, they shelve it. Like, I don't know, the placebo effect. You name that, don't have to worry about it. But sir, done. Right, done. But sir, the 70% of the people in the test got better anyway. That means 30% got better because of the drugs. There you go. That's great. And by promoting the drug rather than just giving people the ability to heal themselves, if that's what placebo effect really is describing, then why don't we allow and promote that to be a thing? Is inner health or your mental health all connected? And we talked about the mind, body, spirit disconnect. How our culture has, destroyed the family unit. It really has. Our family unit's going back a long time ago, and still even exercised in, say, Malaysia, in the longhouses, Meki, where you have multiple generations living together.
Yeah.
And we've been taught that that's not right. That you move out, you become independent. That means you're independently controllable. You're now you're controlled by money, by your mortgage or your rent. You no longer have the generational education within your family that perpetuates more than you think.
Yeah.
So, this losing all of these things and chopping, the finer you chop up your people into different belief systems and different operational groups, the easier they are to control. They're no longer a collective with a power. And so, look, all of these things that I've spoken about, and this is why Meki and I have always enjoyed talking to each other about stuff. And when Nighthawk offered me the show, I just rang Meki straight away. I said, we've got a show. It must have been the same minute. Right? So...
What show? What?
yeah, that's right. And I said, he offered me a weekly show. And I said, I can't do a weekly show. That's ridiculous. Sorry, daily show. Can't do a daily. Let's do a weekly show. So I pitched it, and he said yes. He wanted me to do a daily show. And it was not enough time. The amount of research that we both do collectively towards working out our position on things and learning is so crazy. We couldn't do it on a daily basis. You just couldn't. So we've had some pretty good guests over all these years, 14 years. The guests are, I'm not going to tell you a percentage, but you could work it out if you have a look at the guest list on our website. You'd be surprised how many we're lucky to have been able to interview in the short time left that they didn't know they had. And there was one that passed away between the invite and the date of the show he was to be on air with.
I know.
Yeah, so look, for the rest of them, glad we had that time with them, and even the lucky existence of being able to get the actual person, not a representative, in some cases was just astounding, isn't it, Meki? So we've got another guest on a guest list coming up, not very long away. We're just organising to schedule, and because UFOs have always been a passion of mine, but we've got to the point now where I know that person called me. I'm not going to give it away yet. That person called me at one point. I'd already written my book about it. Another book came out, and that person called me and was concerned that I was backing something else. So anyway, it was interesting to get a call out of the blue from someone quite kind of famous in our region. And the other one was George Simpson. He called me the same day that MH370 went down. The same day. And his story is he was the not chief researcher, but one of the most prominent researchers of the Valentich case, of the Cessna that radioed back that there was a UFO, and then we never heard from him again. Just crazy. So happy to have been part of those stories, and looking forward to where this can go. And what we didn't know, Meki, was that how many things are connected. Was that your biggest surprise, like me?
In some ways, yes. Because this is the thing when it comes to what people like to call the paranormal research, and as Dave has just pointed out, I don't really like that term, and neither does Dave. But let's use it in order to understand what everybody's talking about. Because everybody has something. Like, let's say Dave, for example, was very interested in UFOs for obvious reasons. I myself was very interested in ancient civilization and the Bermuda Triangle and the UFOs as well. Totally. But others might be more interested in Bigfoot, and others yet might be more interested in ghosts, for example, or the secret societies, how the parasitic elites have shaped our history and things like that. But everybody has a entry point, if you will, into this world.
The human timeline, out of place objects, yeah.
Completely. And we've asked that question of all of our guests, or most of our guests, what is your entry point? The funny thing is this, though, right? The funny thing is this. And this was, I think, Jim Marrs, because he came to this through the JFK assassination, I think, in many ways.
That's right.
He said we all end up in the same place, more or less, right? Because he was very interested in aliens, ancient civilizations, bloodlines, and all of that stuff as we are, and it sort of all melds into one. So one way to keep the researchers separate is by creating artificial tensions between them, right? If you're a Bigfoot guy, then the UFO guys are going to laugh at you.
That's right.
Yeah, if you're a ghost guy, then the UFO guys are going to laugh at you, or whatever the case may be, right? And that's the sort of segregation, which of course is completely incorrect, and one should avoid at all costs, because the truth is this, and this is to Dave's point, and in answer to his question, it did surprise me that in fact everything is connected. Mm-hmm. You cannot understand the whole picture unless you actually start looking at everything. And for me, it was the esoteric. I just wasn't interested. Mm-hmm. The Kabbalah, magic numbers, and the flower of life. Mm-hmm. It just brought me to tears. But it became exceedingly clear that if I didn't understand it, I would miss one of the major keys of understanding, in fact, the universe, right? Mm-hmm. Or the totality of the mysteries, because it's all connected. Even mundane things. I mean, you think about mundane things, it all is connected. And then we realized that our research into, again, I use the term because everybody knows what I mean, into the paranormal, you realize that quantum physics is actually answering some of the questions which were posed by the paranormal research, right? And it, of course, opened up more questions in the pursuit of knowledge. So, yes, I was surprised that everything was connected, but by the same token, I shouldn't have been, or not to the extent that I was. And I realized that I had to stretch myself into areas that I didn't find as interesting or comfortable with, as I found other things. And if you look at the shows that we have had, and I'm just jumping in the text here for a second, Dave, and this is not even an exhaustive list here, but there's scores of topics we have looked at, and I give you some to illustrate my point. I want to pick on a couple, right? We looked, and I explained why. We looked at water. We looked at telepathy in the original language. We looked at the Mandela effect and time travel. We looked at reincarnation, ghosts, vanished people, Bigfoot, UFOs, gold, monatomic elements. Mm-hmm. So it's a vast, and I haven't even mentioned a fraction of what we've done. But the point is this: they are all linked. Let me just pick on one. Let me pick on one, and then we will get into the text at some point. Water. Now, we had done this show probably for 12 years before we even thought of water as a topic. That's to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But then we were talking and thinking, water is literally 70 to 80% of our bodies, and it makes up a huge. I mean, it's no water, and we wouldn't be here. So therefore, it's an extremely important thing.
Going into it, we knew that water had 3 states.
Yeah,
gas, a liquid, and a solid.
Correct.
That was it.
What triggered our interest was this work of memory having, as water having memory. That sort of triggered our interest. Or even if you speak to water in a nice way, right. The ice crystals that form, they're nice. But if you swear at water, then the ice crystals that are forming are kind of misshapen. And in a sense, this might sound crazy, but what it implies is that water has some form of consciousness or memory or something. And this is really the crazy thing. All the water that exists is there. It's just, we are all part of the same ocean, if you will. If you're talking about the collective unconscious, the Akashic record, whatever, then water would be a perfect carrier for this, because it connects us all, and all the water that passes through my body will eventually end up in your body,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. And so with all living creatures. And once we looked at water, because the memory thing I found fascinating, and we just did the research, we realized just how little we know about water.
Yeah.
We don't understand water at all. Most people think, oh, it's just water. You dismiss it because it's just an everyday thing. Who cares? Right? It's just water. What? We don't know water. There are scientists out there racking their brain as to understand why water works the way it does. And some people think there are 2 or 3 liquids present at the same time in water. Distinct, separate liquids in water. Yeah, which imbue it with different properties at the same time. Water is the only substance that we know of that expands when it freezes and when it's heated. No other substance does this. And funnily enough, if it didn't, then chances are there would be no life on Earth, the way we know it. Life, because water freezes from the top, because the water, as it expands, gets lighter than the water in liquid form, and that's why ice cubes float above, right?
And if you compress an ice cube, it goes back to water.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's completely insane. And so we looked at it. We spent a lot of time on, and
we did,
and then we found more and more stuff. It made the other aggregate or other states that water can be in, not just frozen liquid.
That's right. So in a liquid form, it has 2 states of electrical resistance, and over a certain degrees in Celsius, or just call it degrees, before boiling, it goes from highly resistant to not resistant. But lower resistance. And that was a huge finding that no one even expected to see. So water also has 2 molecular structures within itself. And that's why they say that it's kind of corrosive. It can carry other minerals with it, is because of these 2 different shapes. And when it freezes, those 2 shapes go apart from each other. That's what causes them to float. They're less dense per mass per volume. So it's a really extraordinary thing that they do that. Ice skaters would not be able to ice skate if water didn't expand when it froze, because the blade of the ice skate actually creates water. It crushes that ice back to water and lubricates between the metal and the ice. Otherwise, the ice skate would just kind of freeze there and become the same temperature, and it would freeze and you wouldn't go anywhere.
That's right.
Isn't that extraordinary?
All these things. Yeah, but see, this is the kicker, right? I mean, we just accept it because there it is. It's just a fact of life form.
That's right.
But what does it mean? What does it mean? Right? What? And that's really, and this is a simple example, because water is a substance we don't think about at all. It's like the air we breathe. We don't think about it. We just breathe it, right? Which is another mystery, by the way. But water is a strange thing. And once you realize that, and we realized it before we looked at water, but once you realize that, you realize that you can't look at any one phenomenon on its own. And the biggest problem that we have today, Dave, in science, in general, in society, that there are accepted things that we can look at and study and learn and deal with, and then there are things that are not accepted. Now, most of the things that we discuss in the show, not all, because we do discuss quantum physics, most of those things are not accepted as accepted fields of endeavor, if you will, right? They're not acceptable by society. It's a waste of time, and you shouldn't waste your time, and it's nonsense, and blah, blah, blah. So people are actively discouraged from looking into these, even though they're part of the sum total of our experience in this world, right? Again, this word paranormal would put all of these things into a different category. And that's where we're all falling down collectively. Human beings, for the longest time, and still do to some extent, see themselves as separate from the natural world, right? So there's the natural world over there, and then there's the cultural world, which is the world that we created. Nature versus culture, right? The cities we build and the machines we have, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know how we cultivate everything, you know, the word culture. But that's, of course, a nonsense. We're all part of the same system. Okay, you can stand on your head and hate it. But the truth is, we live on a planet with limited resources. We live in a universe with resources, right? Maybe. We don't know. Maybe it's infinite. But the point is, we are an intricate and intimate and highly connected part of the world around us. Again, water. Now, number one, you never step in the same river twice. Think about that for a second. 2, the water that comes out of you will flow into everybody else on the planet. And, of course, vice versa. Okay? We are not apart from everything. We are part of the world. We are part of nature. And all these phenomena, they're not paranormal or supernatural. They are normal and natural. They happen. They exist. They don't exist on another level of existence, on another plane of understanding. They're all around us all the time, but we have chosen, or we've been told, not chosen maybe, to ignore them. Or to call them something else, or ridicule people that are interested. Right? That's a huge mistake, because it's all connected. And we can't understand the world in its totality if we ignore a massive chunk of it. It's like dark matter.
Don't get
right?
me started.
The universe doesn't work, at least the way we represent it in our mathematical formulas and physics theories, unless we have dark matter and dark energy. Do we know that dark energy and dark matter exist? No, we don't. We've never seen it, but we hypothesize it exists, right? Because if it doesn't, then nothing works. Now think of the supernatural and paranormal as dark matter and dark energy. Okay, it's a factor that exists that we don't like to look at, but without it, the universe wouldn't work. We have evidence now for these phenomena. We have evidence, and the funny thing is this, Dave, and you know this well. The people that we like to call primitive, right? The people that live closer to nature are much more connected to these phenomena than we are. And for them, they're not phenomena. It's just what happens. Mm-hmm. These are it's not something outside of their life. It is an integral part of their life. They're in many ways more spiritual than we are. They have no problem accepting that there are forces beyond their understanding. They have no problem spirit walking or taking substances to help them reach altered state of consciousness. Okay, because it's just accepted. That's life. It's part of life. We of course look at it completely different. No. And you have to ask yourself why. And this is really one of the pillars of the hypothesis, and that is control. Who is controlling us? Who is giving us this false notion of what the world is like, and why? Why are they doing it? Why are there certain things in our lives that we simply do not discuss? Why are there certain endeavors of study, certain areas of study, certain subjects and topics that we are strongly encouraged not to pursue? You can't discourage everybody, but you can make the few that do study these things, the butt of jokes and ridicule them, etc., etc. So that's. Then you've got the armchair specialists that go, everybody knows this, and common sense dictate, and Occam's razor that, and then all of a sudden Graham Hancock comes along, whom I very much admire and also largely agree with, as you can imagine. But he is a guy that flies in the face of the accepted wisdom. Is he right about everything? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. Doesn't matter. But he's asking questions that are very important to be asked, and he has shown us the physical evidence. Okay, forget about just trying to cut him down, but look at the things he has shown you. And he's one of many, but he has had a very good platform. And I do like his 2 series that are published on TV. But that's where we are, Dave. We're living this life, and ask yourself, is this really normal? 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If you're lucky, maybe you have to work on the weekend, shift work, late nights, come home, you eat dinner with your family. Maybe if you're lucky, spend a few moments with your children if you have them. And then you repeat the same thing ad nauseum, for 40, 50 years. Go on holidays once in a while when you can afford it. And then, before you know it, let's say you entered the workforce when you're 18 or 20, you exit the workforce in your 60s, so that's 40, 45 years of work, which you have you lived? I don't know, did you exist? Did you really live? Well, you spend most of your time at work, so hopefully you did something you liked. But that's a big chunk of, and we accept it, that's normal. We have given our effort over, our work effort, to someone else. We've said, this is my time, Dave. Okay, and here you go, you can have it for $50. And then Dave tells me what to do for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, or whatever. And that's only a recent development. Before that, people didn't have freedom like that. The vast majority of people, they're just living in quasi-slavery, if not outright slavery, where you had no control over anything. And the few told you what to do, the few with the power. But we accepted that's life. We go. And why is it normal that we have to take out a mortgage to buy a $3 million house? How is that a normal thing? There are societies that don't do that. Look at the Amish or the Mennonites, right? They don't do that. But we do it. We accept it. It has been accepted because we've been brainwashed into believing that this is the right way. Right? Now, I came to a realization over the last 40 years, 45 years of my life, where, and I've been working since I was 16. And for a big chunk of my work life, I worked 7 days a week in jobs, right? While I went to uni as well. So I know work. And I can work, and I'm not lazy, and I've never received unemployment benefit. So I've always worked. So I'm not knocking workers at all, because I'm a worker. But I knock the system. I think the system is wrong. And I don't think it's a system that we should endorse or support. There has to be a better system. And the better system can exist. And again, I come back to things that we're discouraged from learning, like free energy. Okay, the work that Tesla did, if right? I mean, just think about it for a second. I mean, what is your opinion on I know that you hate it, right? This whole, sleep, eat, work cycle. What are your thoughts?
I definitely have an opinion on this. So, thinking about when we were hunter-gatherers to farmers, that shift was a large shift. Not being nomadic anymore, or operating a patch like the Australian First Nations people would burn something to the ground, live in that part while it grew, then burn another one, and by doing that, you're actually clearing out most of the venomous creatures out of that area, and it promotes young growth. And in the young growth comes the insects underground. The tubers, all those things that are new growth, and they're really good eating. So they were doing that. It's kind of like rotational crop for farming, where continual of growing the same crop will eliminate some of those minerals out of the soil that need to be replaced. And if you spin it up a different crop, then it can be ploughed back, and you can retain those minerals for the next crop, so they can benefit each other. One thing that we did, this is if you're on your own, you're 100% busy. If you've got another person with you, and this is in doesn't matter hunter-gathering or farming, you start to be able to share the load, and then you hit a perfect point of being able to then have free time as your community grows. you get to a point where only a third of your people need to work and everyone is looked after. So there's this a beautiful scale at which that becomes a thing, and it's efficient and it works really well, and you have a tremendous, say, lifestyle. You have entertainment, then you start to build things in just to while away the hours when you're not doing anything. So that becomes the culture. And that culture is really important once you introduce art, because it shows that you've got that ability. The economy of scale is now working for your group. That group you could call a civilization, depending on how small or how spread out you are, and how you communicate with each other. So all of these different things need to exist. At what point did it then become, with a third of your workforce is the only amount that needs to actually do anything, really? The rest are not there for subsistence, but rather for education and support work. It takes a community to raise a child. You think about all those things that would happen within a large group, and it might be, a group of a cluster of people that just go foraging, right? When we get to the Industrial Revolution, the amount of time that we have now per person is, I'm burning at least 8 hours to 10 hours a day, at least 8 to 10. On working for someone else. Mackie's right. In Australia, we had unions fight for an 8-hour day. So 8 hours at home, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours at work. But that only really works when you're next to your job. If you've got to commute, because our city's expanded, it becomes impossible to stay within those 8. One of those 8 gets cut, and that's the time with your family. So that shrinks down. Your sleeping still has to be there at some 8 hours, or at least. Your work can grow, and then your family time gets reduced. And yes, I think 60 is a little young, Meckie. I don't think trying to pay off a mortgage, a $3 million mortgage, is possible within a single human lifetime. So, at regular average wages, and it's becoming impossible through scarcity that we could ever, in Sydney, where at least where we live, where you could ever achieve any of those things. So was it Singapore, they have a family loan? It's a 99-year loan, and you pass it down to your children, and it's perpetual. It just keeps rolling. That's the kind of thing that I thought we would probably want to venture into here, but now not so much in Australia, where I start looking at where we're going and what that trend might be, and the Great Reset, and how we're just about to be socially controlled. So even the time when we're at work where we're under control, under someone else's control, then becomes now our private time when we're under control. Our social time is now under control, all by, say, December 2025, this year. Then how long is it until our sleep is controlled? Until the algorithms can read what you're thinking, and they've already got those in place. They've made the machines that can do this and can put a picture on a screen from your own mind. So is there a point? And if you think about, if you would add to that, the ability to do a cross-section of your mental health through how you interact socially, then that can be extrapolated into what your thoughts are out even while you're sleeping. That can be part of who you are. And this whole diagram of an individual, and I gave the example about cutting up our civilization into smaller and smaller groups to have more control. Now it's down to the individual. This thing is you. Yeah? And that being you is now how they've boiled down the control down to a single person. So that's how I feel about it, Becky. But you said one thing that was really powerful, and that was that the tribes of people at that point in history, and some still live today, outside of the control and contact with our modern civilization. They still have those beliefs and are willing and able to and support the belief of things that they don't know and don't understand, that are in existence, and they can accept it. They just know it's either magical or something, right? They have an explanation for it, but they don't dismiss it outright. And our civilization, it dismisses everything outright. And what gave it, when you said that, this is what I thought, what gave our civilization the command to be able to suppress it? And for what reason?
That's a very good question.
Because how can we be so belligerent, I suppose, or on purpose to contain it or dismiss it? How can we do that unless we know, or at least they know, there's some power to it?
Yeah. We have...
Go ahead.
Go on. No, I was going to say we have taken... Sorry, we have taken the moral high ground here. Taken.
Mm-hmm.
We've just steamrolled everybody, Dave. Western society and Western philosophy have steamrolled everybody with its... I guess to some extent it grew out of the British Empire. Eventually, World War II handed the mantle to America, which nothing really changed for both nations. But for the longest time, for hundreds of years, we in the West have taken our view to be the superior one, even though the Chinese and now, as we learn now, the African as well as South American civilizations, Indian civilizations were much more advanced and had been around for much longer than we. Mm-hmm. When Europe was still, crudding around in the Dark Ages, So it's a truth, and our worldview in the West has become the dominating worldview, much to everybody's chagrin, I should say, because it's a terrible thing, right? We can't dismiss out of hand. See, the problem that we have, Dave, is in Western thinking, in Western science, especially scientific thinking, you have to follow the scientific method. And if you can't follow the scientific method, whatever you find is completely useless. Mm-hmm. It's not information. It's just nonsense. It's just anecdotal. Who cares? Nobody wants to know it. And that is the crux of our downfall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. So scientific method for those who wish to learn something is that you note your experiment and perform it in such a way that it can be repeatable by someone else. And they should come to the same findings that you did because you've explained exactly how you performed it. And by doing that, they can then back up your idea, your findings. And then if more people do it, eventually lockstep will agree that it's a thing. Whatever it is. Doesn't matter. However, the paranormal experience isn't testable. The quantum world is testable and still makes people's heads scratch despite people seeing exactly the same results. But if I was to talk about Montauk, the experiments were performed there and their notes that they took and what little we have from their notes that proved that telepathy is real, remote killing is real, remote viewing is real, but not with everybody. Not everyone can do it. So if you were to perform a test on anybody, you've got to understand that the person themselves may not be capable of it. And some things only present themselves, we think, at least, if you believe in it. And if you don't, it doesn't. It's like this quantum effect that is there. And if you know about quantum entanglement and the double slit experiment, then if you fire, say, electrons down range and it goes through two small slits, it creates an interference pattern. If you want to, and you're firing them singly, if you want to see which slit that one of the electron went through, immediately it just goes to two painted slots on the wall. If you only have a single slot, it's a single painted slot. When you add a second slot, you don't get two painted slots, you get an interference pattern. And it can't interfere with itself, which is an impossibility, and Einstein says that it's just really weird. His entanglement conversation is just spooky action at a distance. It's been more than 100 years of these experiments. And while they continue to attempt to try and prove it, because there's a Nobel Prize for science in it, if you can say why it does it. What's very unusual is this is the way Mackie and I see it, is that it's called the collapsing of the waveform, and it collapses into what we expect to happen. So by trying to reveal which slit it went through, it realizes we're examining it in one way or another, and that's the way it seems, and then it becomes the thing we expect. So Mackie and I postulate that the entire universe, because we're not just doing this on Earth and it's only Earth, this is everywhere in the universe this would happen. So is the universe itself built from our own expectations? Is everything we see our expectations? So quantum entanglement is the best way of describing, if you've got polarized sunglasses on and you look at any light coming from the sun, there's a paired photon somewhere that has now been polarized that wasn't coming towards you. Light that we see coming out of the sun is at least 3 million years old, that light, before it reaches the skin of the sun. It's been created, it's now energy, and it's coming out. It doesn't always come straight out, it bubbles around, and eventually when it comes out, it might be coming out in another million years out the other side, or it might have already left the sun, and it's now already polarized. It's been entangled with another photon. And this is the magic of the universe we live in. It's almost like the whole thing's written in code. It seems like it might all be artificial. We might be living in a simulation itself, because what we see changes how it is. It turns it into that. And that old expression, Mickey, that the dates predates all this discovery is if a tree falls in a forest, did anyone hear it, right? So did it make any sound? Well, it would have made sound if we were there. Our expectation, it would have made sound if no one was there. But is it in entanglement perspective? Did it make any sound because it was never rendered?
Yeah.
Just like a video game. When you're playing a video game, your point of view is rendered. So you might run 80 or 120 degree POV, but everything else that's not seen by you isn't rendered. It's in a computer. It's not important to render it. Yeah. So it never really existed.
If you have a hard time visualizing it, a fantastic movie called The 13th Floor, which was released at the same time as The Matrix, so not a lot of people saw it, unfortunately. There's another one called Existence, which came around at the same time, which is also a great movie. Again, talking about layers of reality. So our protagonist, 13th Floor, is I think he works in a computer company. They run a simulation software on the computer, so creating essentially like a simulation of the world machine. And he realized that something is amiss, right? And as the story develops, he eventually drives further than he has ever driven before. So he lives in LA, I think, and he drives into the desert, drives even further and even further yet, and finally comes to a road closure. The road is just closed. You can't go any further. So he removes the barricade and keeps driving into the desert until he comes to a place where it is no longer rendered.
Wow.
So what you see, like in Tron, those green lines and all that sort of kind of thing. That's kind of the visual representation of the non-rendered environment. So a desert up to a point, and then just the non-rendered wireframe.
Yeah.
And so that if you wanted to understand, what that would look like, it's a really good movie. And the movie also asks questions around transcending those layers of existence, right? And because as far as we're concerned, this looks real. If I fall down, I knock my head, it hurts. If I eat a steak, I'll be full, right? If I drink alcohol, I get drunk. So it feels real. Now the truth, of course, is that none of it really is, in the sense that you think it is, because your brain doesn't have any direct channel into reality. The most direct channel your brain has is the optical nerve. But even that is not a true and accurate input of the world, because we see in a very narrow band on the electromagnetic spectrum, very narrow band, right? And most of the things we filter out actively because there's just too much input. So your brain generates the reality from the stimuli it receives via its various senses: touch and smell and sound and sight. Sight being, of course, very powerful. And so it renders the world around you, but not always accurately. That's why you sometimes stumble. That's why things can surprise you. That's why you don't see the gorilla walking through the frame when people are passing a basketball. Right? I really did not see the gorilla.
Not the first time I didn't see it either.
No. I'm so glad no one told me about this thing when I first encountered it.
Yeah.
So I watched it, and I thought it was really about counting how many times the ball was passed between the red shirt people. Yeah.
There was a prize.
Yeah.
There was a prize
that was
for counting it accurately. That's right.
Yeah. So, and I'm so glad that I had that experience, because I honest with you, it came to the final thing, and it goes, "Did you see the gorilla?" And I go, "What?
No,
did you see the gorilla?"
No.
There was no gorilla.
That's
Of
right.
course there was a gorilla, as you see it again. And it just shows you how easily our senses are fooled. There's illusions and easily fooled. So to Dave's point, how real is this reality? Will all be addressed in the hypothesis in the text. We talk about different models of reality, which I think I understand. We haven't read a single word from the text.
Not a single word.
Not a word. That's okay though. That's okay.
I can do this for 10 shows without reading any text from it. Yeah.
I know. Me too. But I did find some new information, which is interesting to share.
Which we're going to bring you next week, because we've got 2 minutes left.
Yes. Oh, jeez, that's right. Look, next week we're going to get into the meat of it, and we'll explain the rules of the hypothesis. We've made you familiar now again with it, but we will also talk about aging and death. Why do we die? Now, this is not as an easy a question to answer as you might think. Death seems to be a very deliberate thing for us that was introduced into our biology deliberately. I know it sounds crazy. I hear you. Just listen to the evidence and make up your own mind about it. If you want to do some, pre-reading, some pre-course reading, you can look at telomeres and telomerase and what they mean to your aging and eventual death. Of course, if a brick hits you in the head with sufficient force, you will die, no matter how well you look after yourself. But death by aging or death by organ failure brought on by aging, that should not be on the cards for us. That should not be on the cards for us. That's where I'm going to leave it. To let you guys think about for a moment.
I think Mecky's basically said, I'll just be in my trailer. I'm done. What a pro. Mecky's pro at this. I love that 14 years under our belt. and we turn up the very millisecond that the show
It's a long
starts, and you know, we actually talk after the show as well, which is really fun. One day we are going to put some of that to air, because the discussion there outside of the time frame of the station airing, the show airing, we come up with new things as well. So if you find that interesting, do comment below and we'll let you know. This has been another Shiny Side Out with Dave and Meki, and we're going to be with you on Tuesday and Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, for Plato's Cave, and we'll see you back here again next week for for Shiny Side Out. And in the meantime, Meki, what do we ask? That everyone
be safe.
We ask people to be safe. Well, take care. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.